All right, good morning, beloved. Good morning. Come on in, grab a seat. We'll go ahead and jump in. It's great to have you at our third session for our Spring Bible Conference. If you haven't been able to join us for Friday and Saturday night, that all is posted to the website already. Also on our YouTube, Facebook channels, would encourage you to go watch that. It's been a huge encouragement to me personally. I've heard several of our folks as well mentioning specific ways that it's been a blessing to them. So if you haven't been able to see that yet, hopefully you'll get a chance to do that. Last night we covered the Christian and AI, artificial intelligence. It was really helpful to see the underpinnings of the worldview that's driving that tech advancement or that push for that tech advancement. So would encourage you to go and work through all of that. We have the privilege of having with us Reagan Rose. He is the author of Redeeming Productivity, which is the book out on the table that hopefully you have grabbed already. If not, we would like each of our families to grab one of those and read through that. It's a huge encouragement. I said a little bit about this on Friday night, but I want to just say a little bit more about that now in case you weren't here Friday night. The book is set up to encourage you in your stewardship of every area of life. How can you be the best version of you for the glory of God? How can you redeem all that God has given you to do for His honor? And it explains what that means. What are we trying to do in glorifying God? And how do we do that? And the book gives you 5 pillars of truth upon which you can build your life. These things are true. And because they're true, then 5 applications of those truths in really practical ways in your life. And as I said last night, it's mercifully short. It's not this huge tome that you'll start and never finish. You will get through it because it is a short, helpfully short book, but loaded with stuff. So please grab one of those and take advantage of Reagan's work for us on our behalf in that way. Also, I'd encourage you to go to his podcast, Redeeming Productivity Podcast. You can find that on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And what I love about Reagan is that he's really clear with his titles of what he's covering in that podcast episode. So you can kind of just look through the show titles and kind of know what he's going to be covering, and whatever draws your attention, jump in and do those. What I also appreciate, brother, is that they're not terribly long. Some podcasts are like 4 hours long. Who's got time for that? I don't. His are 25, 30 minutes at the most. Really helpful. So you can do that while you're trying to be productive doing something else. Listen to him while you're getting your exercise in or whatever it is. So thank you, brother, for your work in all those ways. I want to encourage you as a church family to take advantage of those opportunities. Also, we've been trying to give out some resources along the way, so I've got a few of those this morning. The first one I want to give out is by Peter Gaiman. We had him here a couple years ago to do a Bible conference on eschatology, and he wrote a book last year on artificial intelligence and the Christian. Very helpful little booklet. Again, mercifully short, covers the topic helpfully and quickly, and kind of gives you just an introduction, gets your feet wet on what's going on in the AI world and how you can be thinking about your involvement, your connection to AI. So we're going to give this out this morning. I want to give this out to an adult who uses AI in their workplace. All right. So if you're an adult who uses AI in your workplace, go ahead and stand up. Now. Yeah, there you go. Good. Awesome. Excellent. That's it. I believe more of you do than that. Some of you are lying, I think. All right, so you use AI. There you go. All right. See? Yeah. The Spirit convicted. Well done. I appreciate that. All right, so now we're going to go with whoever has the most, I should have thought of this ahead of time. We're going to go with whoever has the most children at home that can be a blessing by your work in this way. So who's got the most kids? Not even at home, just the most kids, period. Most kids? You got 7, right? What do you have 7 as well? All right, who's going to fight it out between the two of you? All right, we'll give it to Rory. Go ahead, come grab it, Rory. All right, give Rory a big hand. All right, then I've got 2 copies of a book that Reagan wrote on gaming, A Student's Guide to Gaming. What I love about this book, I haven't read it cover to cover, but gutted through it to kind of get the gist of what Reagan had to say in this book. Again, a short, helpful little booklet. What I love about it is that the principles that he gives about gaming in this book are applied to every part of life, and particularly the tech world of life. So even if you're not a gamer as a high schooler, or a young adult, I think you'll be benefited by his helpful assessment of it, and it'll make you think about your engagement with other parts of tech in your world. So all of our 13 to 25-year-olds, all right? 13 to 25-year-olds, stand up. 13 to 25, stand up. All right, very good. Thank you. I don't even have to have you admit that you're lying. You just all stood up. Good job. Excellent. I appreciate that. All right, so now I want, if you have played a video game, stay standing. You've played a video game, stay standing. Excellent. Good. I figured that you all would stay standing. Very good. Now we're going to go with the person who has the most gaming devices. All right, so if you have the most gaming devices, what are you sitting down for? How do you know you don't have the most? All right, so you have 2 or more gaming devices. Stay standing. 2 or more. 3 or more. 4 or more. 5. All right, Nolan, we're going to give it to you. Come grab it, Nolan. All right, everybody else stand back up, 13 to 25. Stand back up. We got another one to give out. All right, now we're going to go with a really fun one. Whoever got the least amount of sleep last night, who is that? So you got 5 hours or less. Go ahead and stay standing. 5 hours or less last night. Josh, is that why you're drinking a Monster right now? Yeah. 4 hours or less? Okay. Who got the least between the two of you? I know. They can't even answer me. They're both chugging their Monsters back there. This is ridiculous. All right, Wesley, come get this book. And you guys can share it together when you wake up later today, all right? Let's give them all a big hand. We have the joy of hearing from Reagan this morning on social media and the Christian's interaction with social media. He's done a lot of work on this personally, wrestled through it in the practical realm that I know of, just talking to him through our friendship and hearing how he's wrestled through that himself, and then tried to help others think through it through his podcast, and now he'll share some of those insights with us this morning. So let me pray for him, and then we'll have him come. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for the joy we have as your people to order our lives in accord with your truth. We trust that what you've said is right and good and true in every way. And we desire to have lives that are rightly following after all that you have called us to do and to be. So we pray that you would help our brother to lay the word plain before us this morning and apply it to this very tricky and difficult to navigate area of our lives. We pray that you would convict us of sin where needed, encourage us in righteousness, strengthen our hand to do what you've called us to do and to be. In Jesus' name, amen. Brother?
Well, good morning. It's great to be back with you all. It's been an encouraging weekend. I've had some great conversations with many of you, and I appreciate that. Hopefully, this evening, some of you will come out as well for the Q&A time, and we can fight about some of this stuff. This morning, I wanted to talk about social media, and my intention here is to be very, very practical. And I've recognized, I was talking to Pastor Matt about this so far this weekend, that we've called the conference Redeeming Technology, and for the most part, I've been largely negative on a lot of this stuff. And I always like to say, I'm not anti-technology. I read a book on video games, and people say, are you anti-video game? No, I love video games. Are you anti-social media? I'm not anti-social media. I love it. I'm not anti-AI. I enjoy some of the benefits of it myself. But the thing is, a lot of these can be distractions for what we ought to be doing. And I think in the category of distractions, our phones, and specifically social media on our phones, for many of us, takes up an inordinate amount of our time. And I think most of us will admit this. We all kind of joke about it, that I'm addicted to my phone. It's kind of like a very common thing. Yeah, I can't stop looking at this thing. And one of the things that I've been convicted about in the last several years is that a lot of us would admit we have a problem with too much time spent on screens. We don't like that, and yet very few of us take it seriously to actually make some changes. And so what we're going to talk about this morning is this idea that, hey, it could be that everyone's addicted and that nobody cares. And maybe we need to care about that as Christians. Not to say that social media is evil or it's somehow this awful, horrible thing, but to say that it is a very real distraction, or can be in our lives, and we need to take that seriously and maybe take some steps to resist that pull, and maybe for some of us to just cut it out of our lives altogether. So that's what I want to focus on this morning. I want to draw your attention to one verse in particular, 1 Corinthians 6:12. You may know this verse. It's the Apostle Paul. It says, "All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything." And I think our phones and social media fall into this category that we might designate as within Christian freedom. It's not necessarily a sin issue per se, but this idea that something that is lawful, something that is even has good aspects to it, can dominate us. It can come to be a problem where we use it too much and it distracts us from the important things in life. And so, we entitled this, Slaves of the Feed. Everyone's addicted, but nobody cares. And one of the things, as I've looked into social media myself and researched this in the past several years, one of the things that stood out to me is we're at this point where the science and the research around social media, and specifically its addictive nature, is basically settled. There was, even 5 years ago, people kind of argued about this, as saying, yeah, it's a side thing. It doesn't really draw you in and suck you in. And pretty much everyone agrees on this at this point. And I'll show you some statistics and stuff around that. But it reminds me of, historically, there was a time in this country when I was a kid when cigarette smoking was a very normal thing. It was everywhere. When I was a kid, you'd go to a restaurant and there was a smoking section. And you know how they contain the smoke between there? The non-smoking section? This little half wall. You're like, oh, that does it. And you'd go places. It was just a very normal thing. And then the funny thing was, though, it was in the 60s, I think, the Surgeon General released that report on the correlation between smoking cigarettes and cancer and the unhealthy effects of it. And it took 30 years for society as a whole to catch up and be like, hey, we all know there's a problem. And then eventually people said, maybe we should make some changes about it. And I just use that as by way of analogy that I suspect, and then in the next several years, you'll see more and more people with choosing to forego social media. I think we're already seeing that. There's probably some of you who say, I'm not on social media. There's probably some of you who, and I've talked to some of you that said, I switched to a dumb phone. And I see more and more of that, and I suspect we will see more and more of that as people recognize this is a problem, this thing that's become normal maybe shouldn't be normal. And I believe that as Christians, we should, of all people, be taking seriously if there's a thing in our lives that is such a distraction, then we should be willing to take some steps to make some changes. Okay, so I want to show you some facts and some things about this to try to, hopefully if you're not persuaded about this, to persuade you to see that, hey, this is something that it's almost undeniable at this point. So I call this the settled science of smartphone addiction, because that's great alliteration, you got to admit. So I do think that smartphone, especially social media addiction, kind of snuck up on us. And so sometimes you'll be talking to people, and they'll talk as though the phones we have in our pockets or the social media apps themselves are the same as they were 10 years ago. And it's not. You might have the same icon, it might be the same Facebook, but it's radically different in how it behaves. The phones have become more powerful, obviously, but also the apps have developed in their sophistication in keeping us scrolling, right? That we talk about the algorithm, right? We all know the algorithm. Facebook, for example, used to be a way to connect with friends, and it still has aspects of that. But more and more, the platforms have become decidedly about how do you keep you focused for as long as possible on here. Why? What's the motivation? They want to show you more ads, right? Short-form content specifically. if you have TikTok or Instagram has Reels or YouTube has YouTube Shorts, these are like these, I heard someone call them digital Doritos. You ever get a bag of Doritos? You're like, I'll just have a few. You're like, I've had 4 bags now. What happened? That's how it feels when you go on some of these platforms. Is there's this sense of, I came on here to check something real quick. Like, you'll open my phone to check my messages, and all of a sudden it's Thursday. Like, what happened? And that's by design. And it's this design to, the longer we keep our eyeballs on it, the more ads they show us. And I think that there is wisdom for believers to recognize if something is designed to be addictive, we should approach it with more caution. This was the warning that happened with cigarette smoking that worldwide there sort of has been a lot of turnaround on. Hey, we should be careful with things that have potential to addict. And especially with phones, because it can waste our time in big ways. I think one of the ways it snuck up on us is phones, and specifically computers. Steve Jobs famously said that he wanted computers to be a bicycle for the mind. That was his thing, that sort of this tool you could use that would enable you to go faster and accomplish more things. And it really is amazing. The iPhone, smartphones in general, they're like these Swiss Army knives in our pocket. It can do anything. I can check email. I can turn off the lights in my house. I can connect with the news. It's amazing. It's incredible, all the powerful things it can do. But it became less of a tool for productivity and accomplishment, just in the way we use it. It can do those things, but it also is this device for constant entertainment. And more, if you look at your screen time report, you'll see that for most of us, that is what dominates the amount of time we actually spend on these devices. And so as they've gotten better and better, we've slowly, and I think little by little, kind of slouched into this fog of these almost like device-driven dopamine dens or something, where this thing consumes your life more and more. And just a little from my own experience, I left social media several years ago, except for YouTube, which counts, I think. And a long time ago, I think 2018, I wrote an article called How to Sheath the Double-Edged Sword, I talked a little bit about the double-edged sword of social media, or of technology on Friday. But the idea there is I've kind of been, as I teach about personal productivity, that's kind of my day job, is I've always wondered, how do you increase the benefits of how these devices genuinely do help us while dulling the edge of this thing wants to suck my entire life away, you know? And the more and more I've looked at that and trying to figure out how to split the difference, the more and more I think that I've seen that the downsides have only got higher and higher and higher with social media specifically, and phones more generally. And they've increasingly tilted the scales away from the positives. And for me, at least, one of the major problems is it's hard not to use my phone. It's not, if I have it by me, just the convenience factor. It's just easier to do that than anything else. I said, I think it's in the book, that it is a cosmic act of defiance in the morning for me to pick up my Bible instead of my phone. Given the option, you wake up, you're groggy in the morning, and you say, what am I going to do? Well, let me check something real quick, or let me open the Word. I always do the easier thing. And I think that we have to recognize that we have a little temptation machine in our pocket, not necessarily even to overt sin, that is a big part of it, but to just distraction. And this has become a nearly universal problem. One of the things that I want to emphasize this morning is that basically the debate, like I mentioned, there's been a debate about what are causing some of these problems society-wise. And a lot of the research, this is outside of the church. Maybe some of you have heard of this book, The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt. This was a best-selling book in 2024. Jonathan Haidt is not a believer. He writes this as a psychologist and a social scientist. This is an entire book looking at the effects, many of these things that they saw in Gen Z, that problems in many different areas. And basically, he just goes through and says the answer really is, it's almost undeniable at this point, that it is the phones. He has all these charts in there that basically show things like depression among teens or self-harm or body image issue, all this stuff. And they all trend like this, decade after decade, and all of a sudden 2012 is sort of this inflection point, and everything goes like this. And the thing he points out in the book is 2012 was the year that the smartphone passed the 50% adoption rate. And most people, more than half of people, began to have a smartphone around 2012. And he said, this is the thing. It is social media. And it's basically inarguable at this point. And again, this is secular psychologists and people studying it, but this was a consensus statement that came out last year. Basically, they looked at all of the top 120 some odd people who researched this stuff, and they all, for one rare time, agreed. Basically, 92 to 97% of them agreed with these different statements. There's this correlation between adolescent mental health decline and smartphones, sleep problems, the correlation between behavioral issues and all of this, issues especially with young girls and young women more generally. It's a major thing. And one of the things that has come out of all of this is that if you're a parent, you think, well, the kids don't recognize this. They don't see it's a problem. If you're a parent, you kind of notice it in your kids. You're like, why are you always on that thing all the time, right? Come on, kids, your parents say that. And then you say, well, why are you on it all the time, right? But one of the things that's interesting is a lot more younger people are saying, I don't want this. And in some cases, they're the ones leading the charge. There was a survey done last year among Gen Z, and more than half of Gen Z said they agreed with the statement, I wish social media had never been invented. Like, really? But they were on it because I feel like I have to be. I feel like this has to be part of my life because this is where the social I feel, one person said, I was watching an interview, she said, I feel if I'm not on there, it's like I don't exist. I'm a ghost if I'm not on there. And so there's this pressure to be on there, but at the same time, this recognition that I don't like this. I go and scroll. I mean, you guys, tell me if you have this experience. You have this impulse. I want to go check it, and then afterwards, you're like, I feel terrible. You get that icky feeling. Like, what is that? And yet you go back to it. It's very dysfunctional. And one of the things is, even as this has been really emphasized among how this issue has affected young people, we want to say, the older folks, yeah, that's just the kids, but it's okay, I'm okay. But I think less and less that's hard for us to actually admit, even if you're on board with saying one of Jonathan Haidt's recommendations in that book is not to have kids have a smartphone or social media until they turn 16, we think is probably wise. Many adults, we have this attitude of, yeah, the kids, but I'm an adult, I can handle it, I'm a big boy. But I think that doesn't really survive scrutiny either. If you look at your own phone usage, for most of us, and I'm not trying to project, and this is a problem for everybody, but we joke about this. We joke about being addicted, and if we're honest, many of us don't like how much we use our phones. We don't. And one of the messages I would just have, just on the very practical front for you, is you have permission not to use it. I mean, not that you need permission for me, but I've felt for a long time that, I kind of needed to be on there. I needed to be using it. And when I got off maybe 2.5 years ago off of all the social platforms, and one of the things I noticed was that there were no downsides, basically. It was like, oh, I'm free. And I was still able to keep up with friends. I was still able to know what's going on in people's lives, but there was a lot less stress. There was a lot less sense of feeling busy. There was a lot of good things that came back into my life because of that. And I just like to say is you can leave. You don't have to use it. It's not necessary. And in fact, there's a lot of wisdom in maybe considering getting off. This is a quote from Catherine Price. She wrote a book, which is a great title, How to Break Up with Your Phone. Isn't that great? But this is, she was writing in another publication, she said, but as many adults are beginning to realize it's not just the phone-based childhood that's the problem, it's the phone-based life. While children and teenagers are suffering the most from the negative effects of social media and too much screen time, their parents, and frankly, all adults are as well. I think a lot of us can relate to that. But here's the thing. This is why it's so hard, is you think, but yeah, that's just how life is now. Right? Even if you're disposed, if you're on the same page with me on this and you're just like, yeah, I don't want to, but this is kind of just life now. Don't I just have to go along with it? This is what's normal. And I think one of the things we do is we try to hide behind quote unquote normal. You know, just as, back to the cigarette analogy, just as cigarettes were normal then, and then suddenly they weren't, I do think being on our phones all the time is currently seen as, well, that's just what you do. But normal is not a synonym for wise, is it? You know, that your mom might have said something to you about if everyone's jumping off of a bridge, do we need to do it? If everyone's on their phone all the time, do you need to do it? You don't. And I would just ask you some pointed questions, just just to consider: is it normal that we read less than we used to? Yeah, I remember as a kid, I read a lot of books, and as a young adult, I read a lot of books. And when I got a phone, I read a lot less books. And this maps out to the data as well. Most adults read less than one book a year. And that is becoming more and more on the rise. And reading's a good thing. Is it normal that we do our devotions less frequently? I mean, if we tried to chart this out and map it out, I say, how many mornings am I actually in the Word and spending time in prayer versus I intend to do that, but I get up and, again, I check something real quick, and then my morning's gone. Right? Is that normal? Am I okay with that? Is it normal that things like hospitality, that biblical literacy, prayer, or even our closest relationships are being pushed to the side by scrolling? Is it normal that such a significant part, just in terms of hours and minutes of our lives, are going into this artificial world that's on these little screens? Is that normal? Are you okay with that? And it may be, yeah, that's what everyone's doing, but I just think as Christians who are trying to be faithful, trying to steward these lives as best we can for the glory of God, our very definition of what is normal ought to differ from the world's. I would that we would one of the ways that if I had my way, that one of the ways that people would see that Christians were markedly different from the world would be that in our use of technology, that there would be an obvious sign of, hey, this person talks to people face to face. This person's not on their phone all the time. And again, I'm not trying to say it's some evil thing or some wicked thing to be on your phone, but there's so many negative side effects of it. That I think it would be so much more wonderful if we used it much, much, much less. And so I don't want to accept these definitions of normal, but what do we actually do about it? Again, this is the problem. How do I actually respond? This is where I want to get really practical. And I want to say this. There is a difference between impossible and inconvenient. There's a difference. It seems nearly impossible to live in today's world if you're not constantly, if you're not connected through all the different apps, or even if you don't have a smartphone. And I have, if any of you have followed my stuff over the years, I've kind of detailed my own misadventures trying different ways of related to technology. I've tried all the dumb phones. Some of them are very frustrating. I'll tell you that. It is a real problem. I talk to people all the time. They're like, I want to use a dumb phone, but they're all terrible. I'm like, yeah, they are. Some of the common questions people say, how do you, say you want to, and I'm not recommending this is what you need to do, but say you want to go full dumb phone. You're like, I'm just done with, not just social media, I want to be done with my phone totally. It's really hard, and immediately questions come up about, well, what about GPS? How am I going to get to CVS and get my sour Skittles? Just to name a very specific example. How do I? What if I need to be reached? There's all these different issues that come up, and this is another thing. And I'm not trying to make myself the example here, but that's one of the things I did. I don't have a smartphone. I've done some really. I have an Apple Watch is my only phone. It's not connected to a phone. It's set up like a children's watch. Like if you've ever done this with your kids, you don't want to give them a phone, and so you can actually set up an Apple Watch like it's a child. I am a child. And that's been the way that I've been able to get around having it for the last 18 months. I haven't had a phone. And I'll tell you just from personal experience, it's incredibly inconvenient to not have a smartphone. But it's not impossible. It's not impossible. It's not impossible, and this is true if you're thinking even of maybe I just want to use Instagram a little bit less, or I want to spend less time on my phone, and you don't want to go full dumb phone. It's going to be inconvenient. It's going to be, and this is really the catch-22 we find ourselves in. Is we think we get trained in, well, I like the convenience. It does make my life easier. It's simpler. It's just more pleasurable. I can just quickly get on and check things. It's really nice. And we've kind of trained ourselves to abhor inconvenience or to, like I said, equate it with impossibility. But it's not impossible. Avoiding addicting content, avoiding unwholesome content, avoiding stuff that's going to suck up your attention for hours, it may mean giving up convenience. But I do believe, and I just say this from personal experience, it's really worth it. It's really worth it. But it is hard. It's not an easy thing to do. We find this all the time. When we get a new convenience, it becomes hard to imagine life without it. Air conditioning, that's really nice. It's hard to imagine a world in which there's no air conditioning, isn't it? Especially when you're in like Florida or something. And once you have a phone that lets you instantly look up anything that connects you to everybody in the world, tap in the latest news, slay the merest whisper of boredom you might feel, it's really hard to go back. And it's a really strange feeling. I remember the first weeks after I stopped using a smartphone, and I mentioned this the other night, that I would just be sitting there, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? There's nobody to talk to. There's nothing to do. And then I remembered that there was a thing called thinking, and it was really nice. A little scary. So it's not impossible. It's not impossible. It is inconvenient. One of the inconvenient things is a lot of these restaurants have switched to having a QR code for the menu instead of a paper menu. Guess what? You can ask them, I don't have a phone. Can you bring me a menu? And they have one. It's not that hard. It's inconvenient, not impossible. I found ways to get directions, access menus without a QR code reader. There's even a way to take pictures without having a phone. We used to have these things called cameras. And you're like, well, now I have to carry extra stuff. How can I possibly carry extra stuff? It's inconvenient. I admit it. It's not. But if you start to confront it, what are the trade-offs? You start to realize more and more if you're having a problem. And again, I'm not trying to say that everybody has a problem with it. My wife's a great example of this. She's on all the social platforms. She has an iPhone, and her screen time is probably 30 minutes a day. She just isn't somebody who it's an issue for. She'll scroll things, check up on people, and then she's done for the day. I can't do that. I mean, I don't know what it is in me, but I just zone in and zone out, and I'm done when I get on there. So if you're in that latter category, like myself, it's worth it to take some action. And you can do things about it. You can get a camera. You can put a GPS in your car. A lot of the dumb phones do have GPS still on them. You can ask the waiter for a paper menu. It's okay. You will survive. But is it worth it? You say, well, why do I want inconvenience, Reagan? I don't want inconvenience. I don't like it. Well, I think embracing, a friend of mine called it blessed inconvenience. I like that. I do think the juice is worth the squeeze. It's worth it to make what we call sacrifices. One of the things Paul says in Romans 12, he says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. I mean, think about this. The Lord calls us to be living sacrifices, right? That we put our entire lives on the altar, as it were, and say, I am all yours, Lord. And you don't have carve-outs. You don't say everything except this, Lord, everything except this. And I think that if you recognize and if you're convicted in your life that, hey, this is an issue for me, then that should be something that is on the altar, and say, whatever it takes, Lord. And it may be that the issue is just time wasting. It may be more pernicious, that it's the type of content that you're consuming on your phone or through social media that you know you shouldn't be looking at that stuff. And all of these things, we should have this attitude of radical willingness to put down something that is a temptation to us or that is a distraction from the life that we're called to live. We don't want to be conformed to this world. We don't want that same definition of normal. We should look different. The way we use our devices should look different from the world. And there are many blessings that come with this. This isn't just sacrifice. In fact, what you find is that there are blessings of inconvenience. I just can speak to my own experience. I feel like I got my mind back, that I'm able to think clear, that I don't have that constant background noise. When I got off of social media and I don't have an ability to check anything all the time, you have time to process your thoughts. You have time to read more. You say, well, what do I do? What do I do when I have a break from work if I don't check social media? I have next to my work computer, I have, it's a very old-fashioned technology we call Book, and I have it right there. And this is what I do. If I need a break from work, what I would used to do is I'd go on, scroll something, go watch a video, go do this or this, and just be locked in. And now if I need a break, I don't go on my phone, I just read a couple pages of the book, and it slows down the mind. I'm not looking at the screen. It's great, and I'm thankful for it. I get through more books than I ever have before, because that's how I take a break, and I love it. It's deeper thoughts, causes me to think deeper. I am blessed by that. I am watching my kids grow up through my own eyes. I have 3 very young kids, and it's just hard. Parents know this. It's hard, and your mind's exhausted, and especially when the day's been long, you plop down on the couch, and the kids are talking to you, and you're like, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I hear you. You're not listening. We zone out, and not having the option to do that is hard sometimes. So I'm like, I kind of want to zone out because I don't know what Junior's talking about right now. But I'm there, and it's more present. It's worth it. There are benefits to the sacrifice. I like that. I'm trying to put this better than I wrote it on the slide. We are made for fellowship. One of the attractions of social media specifically is that it sort of scratches that itch for fellowship, but in an unsatisfying, incomplete way. I can see what's going on in so-and-so's life. I can observe them from afar. And it's almost like an inoculation. It's just enough people time to be like, oh yeah, I'm still connected to the world. But not so much that you have to be vulnerable, not so much that you have to leave the house, not so much that you have to have face-to-face conversations, which are sometimes hard and difficult and embarrassing. But there is something that is missing when we mediate our entire lives through screens. There's something different about having a cup of coffee face-to-face with someone than there is chatting with them over text. There's even I think there's probably gradations of quality between a text message versus a call on the phone, right? And I think that there's higher quality ways that we can communicate with people even with technology. But I think that we can love the convenience, but we can love more these blessings that we get from embracing inconvenience. And I like, one of the things I like is that I literally can't reach my phone first thing in the morning because it's not there, it doesn't exist. And so instead, I can more intentionally, more consistently choose to be in the Word, choose to be in prayer, choose to be with the family, be present than scrolling. Twitter. You say, okay, but can't social media be used for good? We're talking about redeeming technology. Can it be used for good? Like, and I can think of many great ways to use it. And like I mentioned, the stuff I do through Redeeming Productivity is primarily an online ministry, okay? And YouTube is like the main place, which is a social media platform where I put videos out there. And I'm not on a lot of the other platforms. And I do absolutely believe, though, that social media can be used for good. I hope that that's what I'm doing. But I think sometimes this becomes more of an excuse than anything else. Just because something can be used for good doesn't mean we actually are using it for good. Do you get what I'm saying? There's author Cal Newport. He calls this the any benefit fallacy. And he talked about this all the way back in 2019. He wrote a book on digital minimalism, it was called. And back then, there was less of a consensus on issues with social media. And he was kind of writing, hey, there's a lot of problems here. And so he said, you could talk to someone, you can list, back to CVS, a CVS-length receipt of issues with social media. And everyone agrees with you, yeah, those are problems. This causing issues. That's causing these problems, blah, blah, blah. And then they say, but it could be used for ministry. And you say, okay, well, forget about all that. We could use it for that. And that's what he calls the any benefit fallacy. Basically, any potential thing that it could be good for then negates any of the negatives. But the reality, most of us aren't actually even using it for that. You say, yes, social media can be used for these things. I don't do that. I just use it to doom scroll. But therefore, who cares about all the negative stuff? It's a silly way of thinking, but we all go there in our minds. We have to recognize the time we spend on social media, time is a finite resource. The time we spend there is time we could be spending other places, right? Paul even talks about this. He used the technology of letters. We have them in the scriptures. We're not anti-letters. We have them right here, his epistles. And even in some of them, he'd say, I'm writing to you, but it'd be better if I was with you face to face. There's something better about embodied fellowship with real people, human beings, that can't be made up for, even with Zoom. And so, yes, we can accept some of these blessings that it makes up for it would be better, but sometimes we use these things because we can't be face to face with people. I can call grandma, that's wonderful. I can FaceTime with her, that's great. But when our lives begin consumed by it, we kind of give ourselves over to the algorithm making us more and more addicted to our devices. There's a trade-off there. Time is a zero-sum thing. When you use it in one place, it can't be used somewhere else. And I think back to even if you say, I'm trying to reach the nations with Christian content, I say, bravo, keep it up, let's do that. But be careful, because even there, this is something that's a temptation for me. If I spend 10% of my time posting Christian content, using social media to encourage other believers, that kind of stuff, consuming good stuff with it, but then 90% of my time is just that I spend on there is just consuming junk, social media doom scrolling. Is that really a good trade? You got to consider both sides of the equation, is all I'm saying. And the big thing is just consider the way it's shaping you. Social media is a discipleship tool. It is shaping us into a way of thinking, patterns, worldview things. And little by little, reel by reel, post by post, it trains us to think like often in worldly ways. And even just the medium itself, it trains us to crave these little quick hits of novelty. I need a little fix. I need a little thing. I just have a moment here. I need something new. I want to see something real quick that's going to kind of alleviate my boredom. And that actually trains you into not being able to sustain attention. This is why it's harder to read books. If you guys have noticed this, if you grew up reading and then you got into social media, you're like, I try to read and I can't. It's like, why can't someone invent a book that has the page right here that I'm reading, and then like a little like video game of Subway Surfers or something playing underneath it? That'd be great. Have you guys ever seen those where it's like shows a video game and the content? It's like an assault on your attention. It's training us not to be able to think deeply. This is a bad thing. We need to think deeply. If we're going to study God's word, you need to think deeply. If you're going to pray for more than 3 seconds, you need to be able to think deeply. So let me end this with something very, very practical. In the last little bit of time we have with you, I'm going to give you 7 strategies for reducing screen time. And specifically, I mean problematic screen time. The stuff that you don't want to be doing. Obviously, if you use a computer for work and stuff, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about problematic screen time. You're saying, Reagan, I want to push back against these patterns, but I don't want to do a dumb phone, or I don't want to get totally off of social media. I'm going to give you 7 different strategies you can employ. My encouragement to you, we need to pick one of these. Some of them are very simple, and just pick one today if you're saying, hey, this is an issue for me, I want to make some changes. Here's a couple options. One of them is track your screen time. Every type of smartphone has this on there already. It may not be turned on, and the change starts with awareness. If you are trying to lose weight, you get on the scale. If you're trying to not think about that, you avoid the scale, right? Take all the mirrors out of the house. I don't have a problem. You have a problem. But we have to be aware of where our time's going. And it's hard. I mean, you look at those screen time reports and you're like, ooh, it actually physically hurts me. Turn that on. And I would say pair this with prayer. The psalmist says in Psalm 139, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. See if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Even if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know, Reg, I think I'm okay, and maybe you are. I'm not trying to project that on you, but ask the Lord, do I need to change? And be willing, have it on the altar. Lord, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Whatever you want me to do, I'm willing to do it. Search my heart. Show me if there's a pattern here you want me to change. I mentioned this. It's screen time. If you have an iPhone, look in the settings. You can find screen time. You can turn on the screen time reports, and you can have that email you. Mine used to come on Sunday in the middle of church. And I was like, 1, it's kind of an interruption, but 2, it's like, Lord, I'm already feeling convicted. Don't need this right now. And then I believe on Android, it's still called digital well-being. You can also find that under the settings. So if you have an Android phone, that's where you can turn it on. You can also have this on computer. There's a great little app I use on my computer called Rise, R-I-Z-E, that does tracking of this stuff on your computer to see, and it kind of categorizes it for you, says this much was social media time, this much was that. Just good, start to build awareness. So turn one of those on, get awareness. Strategy two, follow a schedule. This is something I think is just wise more generally, but planning your week or your day out in advance, having some sense of what am I supposed to be doing today. I think this is especially beneficial for young people, knowing what does my week actually look like? Why does this help? Well, one of the things is it helps us to be cognizant of the shortness of time. Moses talks about this in Psalm 90, teach us a number of our days, we may gain a heart of wisdom. When we think about how much time we actually have, we tend to use it more wisely. And so having some sort of, this is what I'm planning to do roughly each day. You don't have to do some super complicated thing like this, but roughly each day, how am I spending, what's my plan for that? Because what you find is without a plan for what I'm supposed to be doing right now, I really have no definition of am I wasting time. Do you know what I'm saying? We're wasting it from what should I be doing? It's the issue of idle hands. And I would say this too, is you can schedule time for social media or screen time. If you're saying, hey, I only check this in the mornings, or I check this in the evenings, I have an hour set aside, I catch up with all my messages, that's great, but having to plan for it. It's that constant being jacked into it all the time, treating your phone like an adult pacifier. And you're like, anytime I'm feeling a little bit weird, I'm just on my phone. That's what we're trying to avoid. And so you don't have to totally cut these out cold turkey. You can schedule that, have it be part of the plan. Strategy 3, maybe some of you have tried this, is delete apps. If you look at that screen time, say you do strategy 1, you're looking at the screen time report and you're like, oh my goodness, Instagram is like 90% of what I do when I'm on my phone all the time. I don't like that. Delete the app. You don't even have to delete your account. Just be like, I'm not going to check this on my phone. A lot of the social media apps, you can check them through the browser on the phone, and you talk about blessed inconvenience. It's so annoying. You'll check it less because you're like, this is a terrible experience. So make it harder or even impossible to use the apps that are most problematic for you, and try to break some of that addiction cycle. Be watchful about it. We want to flee temptation. Strategy 4 is plan before opening. This one's easier said than done, but the idea is before you pick up your device, know why you're picking it up. Right? You saying, and I have to do this even with my computer at home because it's a distraction machine as well, is I make a plan on paper and say, okay, this is what I'm going to work on. And I get on the computer and I work on that thing. This is a tool for getting stuff done, not a universal distraction machine. That's how I have to treat it. And with your phone too, like I'm going to go on here and check messages. I'm going to check my messages, and that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to turn it off. And why I say it's easier said than done, because very often you go on there with that intention, and then muscle memory takes over, and who knows what happens. Somebody takes over your body, and your thumb is doing things you didn't ask it to do. This is just a thing of wisdom. Look carefully then how you walk. Not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. You're being wise with the children. You're thinking in advance, looking carefully. What am I doing? What's my plan? I've helped, this, your family's going to think you're a weirdo and your friends, but I found this really helpful. This is a practical tip, is when I go on a device, I say, okay, I say it out loud, I'm going to check email for 30 minutes. And people are like, who are you talking to? Myself. I'm going to work on this project now for 2 hours. Something about that just helps me lock in and be like, yeah, this is the intention. This is what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to do it. Okay, a couple more strategies for you. Strategy 5 is use an app blocker. One of the things that, I don't know why we think this way, but it doesn't all have to be a self-discipline thing. Sometimes we have this attitude of, I'm going to leave all the temptations there, and I'm going to be like a tough guy, and having all the temptations there, I'm just going to resist them all. And what I say is, what we want to do is proactively flee temptation. Save the willpower for the unexpected temptations. And so in advance, having some plan of, hey, I don't want, there's certain things that I know that having the ability to check these apps during this time, I'm just going to do it. And so make a plan in advance and say, I'm just not going to have that option. And so one of the ways you can do this is using an app blocker. I'll give you a couple options here for those in a second. One of the things I was going to say, I forgot to mention here, is this is spoken about in the Proverbs, with specifically when There's the father speaking to the son, Proverbs 5:8. And he's speaking to his son, saying, keep your way far away from her, the woman who would tempt him into sexual immorality. Do not go near the door of her house, right? And what does this have to do with? I think it's more, we can think about this more than just that specific temptation for lust, for example, which is one that can be aggravated by social media. But imagine you're the son here, and the father says to you, hey, don't go that way. There's a woman there who will tempt you. And he says, but Dad, it's shorter. It's more convenient to go through the red light district than it is to go the long way around. Like, don't you want me to save time? Don't you want me to take the shorter way? It's easier this way. He says, no, you have to avoid that because you will be tempted. There's nothing wise about going to where you know you're going to be tempted and say, yeah, but I'm going to muscle through it with willpower. That's just actually foolishness. Okay, so one of my favorite things, I'll give a specific shout out to an app that I love. It's called Freedom.to, not sponsored. It is an app that can work on any device. It can go on your phone, any phone, Apple, Android. It goes on any computer, Windows, Mac, even Linux. And it works via a VPN. So basically what it does is you can set it up to block any sort of app or website. And you can have it be universal on all your devices. You can set up different block lists. And I first encountered this when I was writing books. When I was still on social media, I would need to block that stuff because if you've ever gone to write, or if you're in school and you're supposed to be studying, everything in you is screaming, do something easier, go on social media. And so I would do this. I'd be like, okay, 90 minutes, block everything so I can just focus in. And so that I'd try to go on Facebook and it would be like, nope, you can't go there. But what I found with this app specifically that I really like, and it's better than some of the screen time that's built into the phones, is that you literally can't just say, I'll ignore this for 15 minutes, right? Have you ever tried to do that, use the screen time stuff? This literally won't let you go there, and you can set schedules in advance. And so what I ended up doing is I made it so that I couldn't go on any distracting websites or apps before lunchtime. And so my whole morning, I was free from even the ability to go on those. And so I think this is a great tool. I still use it to this day. It's always running on my machine that certain websites and stuff I just can't go to during certain times of the day. I find it really helpful. It's Freedom. It's called Freedom.to if you're interested. Strategy 6, 2 more of these. Strategy 6 is establish personal rules. And I heard someone say one time, I want to make a decision that makes 1,000 decisions. And some people call this categorical decision making. So the example would be, you're deciding in advance some personal rules for yourself. So I used to have this rule, no phone before breakfast. Really simple thing. Even without the apps or the fancy stuff or the screen time things, I said, I don't use my phone before breakfast. It's just a personal rule. And later I had one that was no phone before breakfast and no phone after dinner. So I basically have it during the workday, but when I was home with my family, I wanted to be there. And this is just a self-discipline thing, having these rules about yourself. I'll give you a couple example ones. These are different ones that in our online community people have come up with. No phone after dinner or bedtime, or before breakfast, I said. No phone in the bedroom. Just charge it outside. You say, what about, my alarm clock is on there. There's also another old technology called alarm clock. Or you can turn up the volume. Or, most of the reasons we throw up to make this seem like this is so impossible is just spend 3 seconds thinking about it and you realize there's an easy way around this problem. For me, I still use this one. Laptops were for work, not for entertainment. I watch movies, I do entertainment stuff, but I said this one, it's sacred. I'm only going to use it for work stuff. Personal rule. No game apps on the phone. That was something I had to decide for myself when I had a phone because I'd play them too much. No social media. It's just example ones you could borrow or be inspired by. Last strategy. And this is sort of a meta strategy. Replace, don't just remove. The whole point in all of this, as I've tried to emphasize, is not to say that using your phone is bad in and of itself. It can be. Or not to say that social media is bad in and of itself. It can be. But to say that the biggest issue, I think, is that it distracts us from better things. And it's not just that the good would be to just remove this from our life. The good would be to replace it with better things. Have a positive plan for what you're going to do with the time that you would normally spend on your devices. And so, this idea even comes up in Ephesians and Colossians and Romans is, put off the old self, put on the new self. There are things you can do instead, and having some idea of that, so you're not just trading, I could be on my device or I can be bored and look at the sky. Although that can be fun too sometimes, depending if there's clouds. A couple examples. Let me try to make this specific. When you're tempted to go on your device or go on social media, take that trigger and say, wait, what if instead I pray for a friend? Or I quickly just give thanks to God for something? What if I read a psalm? What if I review a memory verse? What if I journal? What if I read a page in a book? What if I call someone? What if I stretch or say I'm going to go for a walk? What if I, heaven forbid, sit quietly and think for a minute? What if I do one small chore, just pick some stuff up? What if and some of these even involve your device. Instead of going to social media, what if I send, hey, I'm thinking of you. That's what I mean by that, a thinking of you text. Like, hey, thinking about you, praying for you. There are many things you can do. And instead of scrolling and having some sense of this is what I want to do instead, this is what's been lacking in my life the trade-off I've been making, having that plan makes it a lot simpler. So I think that all of these, just some inspiration, just some really practical, tactile stuff, hopefully, that you'll find useful. I'll put all of those up on the screen at once if you want to look at them. But again, I would just encourage you, pick one of these. The simplest one is number one, if you're not doing that. Just get some awareness. How am I actually using my device? And ask the Lord for help and conviction where necessary. And consider which of these you might want to employ to try to be more intentional with how you spend your time. That's what we want. We don't want, all things are lawful, but not all things are beneficial. We don't want to be mastered by these devices, right? None of us want that. So let's take action. Would you pray with me? Father, we know our lives are not our own, that they belong to you. We know our time is not our own. I pray, God, for any of us here who do feel some conviction that maybe the way that we're using our devices has become problematic. It's getting in the way of the life you would have us live. I just pray for conviction, Lord. I pray that you'd help us see it clearly, and not just a flash in the pan thing where now I feel a little bit more guilty, but the kind of conviction that leads us to take action and make a decisive move where necessary. Give us the courage to lay all of it on the altar, to be a little unusual, a little different from the world, to not accept those definitions of normal, but to instead say, Lord, I want to live a life of faithfulness, of stewardship for you, and I want to do whatever it takes to do that, and give us the courage to embrace the change where that's necessary. Thank you, Lord, for your word. Thank you for your Son. Thank you that we are under grace and that things like these, I do believe in large measure, Lord, are an area of Christian freedom, not something for us to be legalistic or imposing about on other people, but in our desire to serve you, an area in which we can direct ourselves to be even more faithful. We pray all this in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you.